Alright, so I understand that within the past couple of hot releases, I didn't exactly do spoiler videos because, to be honest, I was never really inclined to do so. Even with Thor Ragnarok, I was like, the only real big thing to really talk about in that movie was one of the end credit scenes, and even that, I was like, well, we kind of already know what they are. I mean, everybody knows what's there to break down. But with Justice League, there was a little bit more than I was actually anticipating when it came to breaking certain things down. Not a whole lot, but enough to, you know what, let's switch the camera on, let's keep it rolling. So here I'm about to go with my spoiler discussion for Justice League. So if you have not seen the film, given that it's only been a couple of days, please check the movie out. Check out my review for the movie if you haven't already checked it out, and then come back and check this out. But if you do not care a single shit about Justice League spoilers, then feel free to watch. Okay, that about does it. So, you've been warned, spoilers start now. So, overall, again, like I mentioned in the review, not a huge fan about how they took a little bit too many notes from Marvel, and they replicated the whole weak aspect of the villains, about Marvel never really getting their villains right, save for maybe Loki and a couple of hitters here and there. But Steppenwolf, not significant, just another CG character saying, I'm gonna take down the world or conquer the world with these mother boxes and stuff like that. You know, it's just didn't appeal to me, and I was just like, okay, it's just a crux, it's just a thing to get the Justice League together and to fight and have the big battle, whatever. But I think it was a little interesting that this movie confirms that the Green Lanterns exist in this universe. I thought that was pretty cool. Sure, it's not going to be the Green Lanterns from that original movie with Ryan Reynolds, because that's just the bastard child they're trying to get rid of, but it's interesting that they're like, you know, it's happening. You know, it's not going to be completely ignored. Green Lanterns exist in this universe via the flashback of Diana telling the story about how all the tribes got together, Man, Atlantis, Themyscira, all of them got together, and they were fighting out Steppenwolf and his army, and among them was one of the Green Lanterns. It wasn't Hal Jordan or anybody like that. This was back in olden times, but it's cool to see that green aura flash around that one alien or whatever it was, and I legit gave a minor clap when I saw it, because I'm like, cool. So there is a chance that we can maybe get the Green Lantern into the Justice League, because the Green Lantern, he's part of the Justice League. You can't have Justice League without Green Lantern, so it's cool that there's a possibility that that could happen. Whether it's going to be Hal Jordan or John Stewart has yet to be seen, but I think at this point we should go with John Stewart. We already did Hal Jordan. It'll be interesting to see John Stewart be in the mix, and it'll be much better if Idris Elba were to take out that role. He probably won't, because he's a little burnt out from Thor, because he's just like, I just don't really feel like doing it. But here's to hoping that, considering that this is a really pivotal role for not only a character that's part of the DC mythos, but more importantly, an African-American character who can take on a lead and not just be essentially a doorman like he was in in the Thor series, then that would be pretty dope. And I think it's worth noting, even though I can barely remember it, but there's that one scene when Aquaman goes off to fight Steppenwolf for a little bit before he escapes with the mother box, and he has a little exchange with his wife. Can't remember her name. Can't remember her name, but it's played by Amber Heard, and I think we got a slight taste of what's to come in the Aquaman movie, where there's like a subplot discussed between him and his mother and his father and stuff like that. So I think that that's a scene worth to pay attention. If by some chance you have still not seen the movie, and you're watching a spoiler discussion, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you, but you should probably pay attention to that if Aquaman is under your radar. Radar. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the big man himself, Superman. You already know he's going to be in the movie, but under what circumstances exactly? He was teased in the trailers. We've already had some promotional material where he's in the fucking costume, yet the trailers and the TV spots, there's nothing of him in there, so I was like, what are you guys exactly trying to do with Superman here? What exactly is his role in the film? It's actually quite larger. To an extent, me and my girlfriend, we were kind of expecting him to be kind of Luke Skywalkered in, where the majority of the film is just these guys that you see here in this image, and then at the very end he was going to pop up and be like, hey, look, I'm here. But he was only going to be in there for like 5 minutes or something like that. Plus in the dream sequence that you saw in the trailer, which actually turned out to be a piece of the film, and he was very predominant in the film, but I feel at odds with myself, because the way that he's brought back was a little weird. And I love that the characters themselves, especially Flash and Cyborg, realized that it was weird that they were digging up his fucking grave. And I love that Flash was making the Pet Cemetery references, because that's primarily what they really did with Supes here. And it felt weird and off. And even my girlfriend was recognizing, like, what is this weird? And sure, it's cool that the characters themselves were being self-referential, saying this might be a bad idea, this is weird, and it did in fact end up backfiring them ultimately, with Superman getting a little crazy there. Little let down, however, because we were expecting this from the Death and Return of Superman storyline. Really disappointed, however, that there was no black suit. It's sad to say that there was no black suit with the silver logo that he's known to have when he comes back from the dead in the comics. Yet here, he's just shirtless. Why? Because Henry Cavill is going to be working out for like 7 months and eating all that protein. Of course, it's in his contract. It's in the Marvel and DC contracts to have shirtless scenes. So that's got to happen. Little let down by that, considering that Cavill himself teased it on his Instagram saying, look, the black suit, and there was no black suit. Possibly being used in the future, which is a theory that me and my girlfriend kind of bounced around, that they kind of planted the seed for Superman to go evil, like full-on evil, where he's going to legit kill people, even though they were kind of going for that angle in Batman vs Superman, but they just didn't know how to handle it really well, whether it be in the writing or the directing or the change in tone. Here, yeah, you can kind of say that it was the bringing back from the dead that's always a bad idea, that just like Aquaman pointed it out, saying that something gets lost when you die. So it's kind of cool that they're keeping that modus operandi kind of in mind, even within this universe, this DC universe. So I didn't mind it. I just think that the process to get there, digging up his body, putting it back in the thing with the mother box, to an extent, it was just a little strange to kind of get through, but what really redeemed it was when Superman finally got back to his sense. Which, I will admit, I would have preferred it to have been something else completely different other than it being Lois. It always has to be Lois to be his, like, moral compass. And I know that my girlfriend would probably disagree if she were to watch this. But, to be honest, I would have preferred it if it was something more grounded, like saving the people or being a beacon of hope. Once we go through that, however, what really redeemed it, and what I kind of alluded to in the review, was that this is the Superman that I wanted back in Man of Steel, and most especially Batman vs Superman. A Superman that was hopeful, but not afraid to crack jokes, and not afraid to be part of a team where he really did embody what the stuff that Batman was often saying, because he kept saying how he was a beacon of hope. He was more human than I was. He's the one to lead this team, and I'm like, we really did not see that much of that kind of persona in Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman, but we certainly do by the end of this film. I really dug this Superman. This is the Superman that I want to see for the remainder of this series of films. Please give that Man of Steel sequel over to Matthew Vaughn, because what Matthew Vaughn describes Superman to be, that's what I want to see in Superman. That's what I want to keep coming back to, and I think he's the right man to go to direct that film, because he was given the explanation that Superman has to be this beacon of hope. He has to be this hopeful person to crack a smile and also to make jokes and to really get down on a human level with the rest of the team, and we saw that not only with his collaboration with the team, but some of the jokes that he was making where he's like, okay, I take it back, I want to die now. I was like, I like you, and Superman's supposed to be likable. He's not supposed to be this mopey, whiny little baby that he was in Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel. Here, he feels like that Clark, that Kal-El that he was supposed to be, and that was just kind of put the cherry right on top. I know that I was gonna save this for later, but that first end credit scene with him racing Flash, it was a fantasy of mine for the longest time for that to be put on film. But I never really thought, this is DC, this is Warner Brothers, they're not gonna do, oh my god, they did it! As one of the end credit scenes, it's him and Flash wagering who's gonna win at this race. And of course it's left ambiguous with them both resuming to the screen, but I was smiling ear to ear when I saw that scene, because that was fucking perfect. And I'm sorry, Mr. Snyder, but there's no denying that was Whedon working his best. That was probably not going to be in the film, but Whedon was like, we got to shoot this. We got to do this. Come on, like, how can you not think of that when you think of Flash and Superman being on the same team? They're going to have egos of who's the fastest. Alright, who else is going to rival Flash? And that's why I loved it when he goes bad and he's holding Diana and everybody else together, and Flash is like, I got the leg up because I'm super fast. And that eye turns around and I'm like, oh shit. And even Flash, as I look in his face, like, you have got to be kidding me. It's one of the best, to me, it was one of the best moments in the film, despite the awkwardness of Superman being a little jaded there in the mind for some reason. So I guess right there I kind of killed two birds with one stone. I talked about both Superman and one of the end credit scenes, which ended up being a gag, but a very glorious gag that I've been wanting to see for a while. So I guess the only real thing to really left to talk about, unless I missed a couple of things, especially that ending montage that showed all the characters in the respectful place, but in a very good way, where I'm like, yes, this feels like a Justice League. All encapsulated by Superman going like this. That was something that I wish I could have seen in Man of Steel or something like that, but I'm glad that they ended the film with him pulling the shirt, Clark Kent style. I was like, yes, that's awesome. Cool. So I guess the only thing to really talk about that's left is that last end credit scene. I did not expect them to do a twofer, but hey, they got to compete with Marvel, so they got to do it. We end with a second end credit scene. This one's actually rather pivotal to the entire series. And it was one that I was just not... No, I don't think anybody was really expecting. Lex Luthor returns, and in classic Luthor fashion, he breaks out without nobody knowing except for some other bald dude in his cell in jail. So the next time you see him, he's decked out in a suit. He looks to be much more toned down. I mean, I know it's only one scene, but Jesse Eisenberg comes back in the role. Here, however, he feels a little bit more neutralized. He looks like he's a much more like, yes... classic Lex Luthor, you know, let's talk business. I don't have time for this weird thing that I was doing in Batman vs. Superman. I know it's just the optimism in me being flourished by how hopeful this movie really did feel by the end, but he felt neutralized. That's the word that I really want to use. And I think that's the best thing that could really happen at this point, considering that they're doubling down with Jesse Eisenberg in the Lex Luthor role. So you gotta calm him down. You gotta cut his caffeine or something like that. Keep him from doing that thing that he was doing in Batman vs Superman. But he looks a little bit much more calm, collected, and thorough here because he's planning the Legion of Doom. He thinks that he can create his own little team up just like Batman and Superman did. So he's willing to double down himself with his own team of villains. And the first recruit I have a list all of a sudden. Deathstroke just appears. Played by Joe Manganiello. I thought it was just going to be like a stunt, you know, like we've seen in other films and TV shows where they introduce a character, but it's just some random actor or stuntman or whatever because they're wearing a costume. No, dude totally takes off his mask. There's Joe decked out with the eye patch and the gray hair and the beard. I was like, that's Deathstroke. That's a legit Deathstroke concocting with Lex Luthor. This shit's actually happening. And, yeah. Very unexpected. Was not expecting that to be the very last thing that I would watch walking out of Justice League. And I think it was a perfect moment to really end that up. I gotta be honest, I might just be looking through rose-colored glasses because I just literally walked out of the film about an hour and a half ago. But this was the DC equivalent. Personally, I might change my mind later, but this was personally the DC Warner Brothers equivalent of... I'm Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. from Iron Man back in 2008. But inverted, because here we have a villain team up, not Suicide Squad, Jesus no, but something that actually feels like a legitimate threat to the Justice League should a sequel be in the works. And at the moment, that's really all that I can really think of to really talk about in a spoiler video. I know that there's probably a little Easter eggs and nuggets of information to kind of break down, especially that very quick mention of Darkseid, and it's not even mentioned as Darkseid the villain. He meant more like the dark side, like the dark side of the Force or something. I mean, I'm exaggerating there, but Steppenwolf does drop the Darkseid word. I just don't know if he was referring to the actual character or he was just thinking from a hyperbole type of sense. I don't know. Nevertheless, it was interesting that it was in there, but besides that, there might have been a couple of things that I might have missed, so if I did in fact miss them, but you managed to catch them, please post them in the comments below. Considering that it's a spoiler video, there's no need to worry about posting a spoiler warning or anything like that. All is game down below, so please let loose. Make sure you support the video by hitting like and share, and of course subscribe to show your support for the channel. Until next time, guys, see you all later. Go back to the difficulty. I'm going to show you something. You notice how much of a drop off there is between the colors right there if you keep going to the right.
It goes doop 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 doop.
Yeah.
I wasn't even paying attention to that.
Really? You just noticed right now?
I'm sorry, I don't pay attention to things like that.